There's a hospital long abandoned, its walls crumbling and its secrets locked away in darkness. But whispers remain. Whispers of inhumane experiments that defy imagination. Locals say the cries of those who suffered still echo through its empty halls. What were these experiments? Who carried them out? And why were they buried so deeply in secrecy? Stay with me as we uncover a chilling truth that will haunt you long after this video ends. The hospital stands in complete isolation, shrouded by overgrown trees that seem to reach for the sky, blocking out the sun. Its walls are cracked, the windows shattered, and every corner feels abandoned by time itself. A heavy silence hangs in the air, thick and suffocating. It's not just the quiet that feels unnatural. Locals say anyone who steps inside hears footsteps echoing through empty hallways, and a chilling sense of being watched takes over. But the real horror isn't in the ghostly whispers or the eerie shadows. This place holds a far darker secret, one that has been hidden from the world for decades. Something twisted happened here, something that still lingers in the walls, waiting to be uncovered. The hospital was built in the 1940s, originally designed as a cutting-edge facility to treat the mentally ill. At the time, it was considered a beacon of hope for those suffering from psychological disorders, offering the latest in medical care. But as the Cold War gripped the world, everything changed. The hospital's purpose shifted from healing to something much darker. Deep in its basement, behind locked doors and hidden away from prying eyes, strange and dangerous experiments began. The kind of experiments that no one was ever supposed to know about. What were they really trying to achieve? Were they searching for cures, or were they testing something far more sinister? As we dig deeper, the answers will shake you to your core. Declassified documents have begun to surface, revealing shocking truths about the hospital's dark past. It wasn't just a place for medical treatment. It had become a secret testing ground funded by the government. Patients who once came for care found themselves turned into unwilling test subjects. The whispers that have circulated for years speak of mind control experiments, human endurance testing, and even attempts to manipulate human behavior on a scale never seen before. Some patients vanished without a trace, gone as if they were never there. But the most terrifying part? The survivors. Those who somehow made it out alive claim to have seen things no one should ever witness. Things that defy explanation. What happened behind those closed doors? And more importantly, who were the true victims of this twisted experiment? Years after the hospital was abandoned, a nurse's diary was discovered hidden in a forgotten drawer. The pages were yellowed with age, but the entries were vivid, filled with disturbing details that made the blood run cold. One night, she wrote about hearing screams from the basement. Screams so horrifying, so inhuman, that they sent chills down her spine. The sound was unlike anything she had ever heard before. Like someone, or something, was in terrible agony. But it wasn't just the screams that unsettled her. In one chilling entry, she described seeing a man being escorted down the hallway in the dead of night. He looked disoriented, almost lifeless. She watched as he was led toward the basement, but he never returned. The next morning, his room was empty, as though he had vanished without a trace. No sign of struggle, no explanation, just an empty room and a sense that something terrible had happened. What happened to that man? And why was he never seen again? The mystery deepens. Among the most disturbing experiments conducted at the hospital was something known as Project Blacklight. The official story was that they were testing a new experimental drug, claiming it would cure insanity. But the truth was far darker. Instead of healing, the drug unleashed horrifying side effects: hallucinations, crippling paranoia, and violent outbursts that left patients in a constant state of terror. Patients who had once been calm would suddenly scream about seeing shadowy figures lurking in their rooms. Figures that no one else could see. Doctors and staff dismissed these claims, labeling them as nothing more than delusions. But then, something unexplainable began to happen. The very staff members who had been skeptical, those who had once called the patients mad, started to see the shadows themselves. At first, they tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was just fatigue, or the building's age playing tricks on them. But the shadows were too real, too unsettling to ignore. Were they losing their minds too, or was something far worse at work in that hospital? The line between reality and delusion was quickly fading, and no one was safe from the terror. Years after the hospital was abandoned, a group of urban explorers ventured into the depths of its crumbling structure, drawn by the dark stories that surrounded it. When they made their way into the basement, what they discovered was nothing short of chilling. The basement, once a place of hidden horrors, was frozen in time. Surgical equipment, now covered in rust, sat on dusty countertops. Tools that had been used in twisted, unspeakable procedures. Restraints were still chained to the old operating tables, as though patients had been strapped down, powerless to escape the nightmare. And scattered across the floor were documents, some partially destroyed, but still legible, labeled simply classified. The explorers sifted through the papers, but what truly haunted them was what they couldn't explain. One explorer, in particular, claimed to have seen faint handprints on the walls. Handprints that seemed to have been left by someone desperate to escape, their fingers leaving marks in the dark. Was this where the experiments took place? Was this the final forgotten stage of a twisted project? The basement held secrets that no one was ever meant to find. And what they uncovered was just the beginning of the terror. In a final attempt to uncover the truth, a team of seasoned paranormal investigators entered the abandoned hospital, determined to document whatever secrets lay hidden within. As they made their way down into the basement, things started to go wrong. Their equipment, normally reliable, began to malfunction. Cameras flickered, EMF detectors spiked without warning, and the air grew thick with an unnerving heaviness. One investigator, his voice shaking, reported hearing a faint whisper, a voice, soft but clear, pleading, "Help me." They all froze, unable to shake the feeling that they were no longer alone. But the real terror came when they reviewed their footage later. In the background, standing just behind them, was a shadowy figure, motionless and silent, its presence undeniable. It was watching them, waiting. Panic set in. The team fled the hospital in a rush, their minds racing with the horrifying realization of what they had seen. They never returned, and each of them vowed never to speak of it again. But the question remains, what was that figure? And why had it chosen to reveal itself then, as if it had been watching them all along? The hospital's dark history was no longer just a story. It was alive, and it was reaching out to them. The hospital has been abandoned for decades, but its dark secrets still linger, trapped in the cold, empty halls. What happened behind those closed doors? Were these experiments part of a larger, more sinister conspiracy? Or were they simply the twisted ambitions of a few individuals who played God with human lives? The truth may never fully come to light, but one thing is certain. This hospital's past will haunt anyone brave enough to step inside. Its walls still echo with the horrors of those experiments. And no matter how much time passes, the fear will always be there, waiting to pull you in. Would you dare to visit, knowing the darkness that still waits within? If this story gave you chills, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more spine-chilling content. And let me know in the comments. Do you think the experiments were real, or are they just urban legends? Stay tuned for more terrifying stories of abandoned places, because you never know what secrets they might be hiding.